All right, everyone. So I want to talk about what's going on with the market right now and talk a little bit about people's mentality toward this market and what they're saying and what they're asking me. Now, I go and host open houses all the time. I've hosted almost every single weekend for the last couple of months. And I get a lot of those sort of forlorn expressions and a lot of that weariness that comes with what's going on in the market now and their experience. And I get it. I totally understand. It is a crazy, frustrating time. In fact, the last 3+ years have been just something or another that's made the market shift in one direction or the other. Obviously, what we're facing now is the big bad is our interest rates, which hit above 8% for the first time this past week. And obviously, that's not good news, and we're not heading in the right direction. And we'll see what the Fed has in store for us throughout the rest of the year. But a point I want to bring up and really try to get into is that, the solution a lot of people have is to wait, right? They say they're waiting and they want to wait things out and see what happens. And I've heard this a lot. This isn't just now. This isn't just this year. This isn't just the last couple of months. This is something I've heard for well over a year, is that I don't like where rates are going. I think I'm going to wait it out and see what happens. And my response is typically like, all right, I understand. Are you waiting because you absolutely can't afford the 8% and that's crushing your buying power? If so, totally get it. Unfortunately, waiting may likely be your option at that point if all solutions with talking to lenders don't work out. But if there's waiting from the standpoint that you can afford it and you just don't want to afford it, that's kind of a dangerous situation that you're putting yourself in, because you're really kind of gambling, right? You're gambling that rates are going to come down. You're gambling that inventory is going to go up, and you're gambling that you're going to get yourself into this perfect position, whether it's in the spring market, summer, next fall, whenever it is. That waiting is really dangerous. And I can tell you this from the experience I've had with some of my own clients and some of the people I talked to last year who said they wanted to wait 6-12 months. And I tried to explain certain things to them about how that wouldn't be a guarantee of anything. And sure enough, 6-12 months later, the interest rates and inventory have not worked in their favor. And they've in fact lost more buying power in some cases. So waiting isn't exactly a magic elixir if you can afford to buy. And by the way, those people I'm referencing were people who could have bought and just kind of had to deal with the sting of a higher interest rate, but could have refinanced later on. And that's what I'm kind of getting to here, is that, you look at the circumstances we're in, and 8% is brutal, 7.5%, not much better. But if you can afford to buy, it is actually going to be a much more favorable solution for you than waiting it out. And the reason is, if you can afford it, you got much less competition here in the fall market. You've got motivated sellers right now. They're ready to get their property sold before the end of the year. So motivated seller means an opportunity for you as a buyer. So yeah, they can't do anything about the interest rate. So, you're going to have to deal with that component of it. But, things like seller concessions, potentially getting a house under asking price, being able to keep your contingencies. All these things could be in play right now. With those motivated sellers. So yes, you'll have that high interest rate, but you can refinance that down the road. So if rates do start to go down next year, you absolutely can then be done with your house search. You're already under contract. You've been paying that 7.5%, 8% rate, whatever it is, but then you can refinance and you're set, right? That way you're done with your search. Everyone else that's been waiting is going to be flooding if the rates do come down. Let's say if they come down, and that's an if. We have no idea when or if they're coming down anytime soon. They will come down at some point, but we don't know if it's next spring market. And assuming it is, just because that's the spring market and that's your wishful thinking, isn't necessarily going to make it so. So what will happen is, though, let's just say for argument's sake, if rates do come down, you're going to have a flooded market with qualified buyers again, just like we saw in 2021. And what's that going to lead to? Housing prices going way, way up, just like they did a couple years ago. And that's going to mean having to drop contingencies, 20, 30 offers in some cases, potentially going 6 figures over asking. You know the whole drill, right? If you paid any attention to what went on in 2021 or experienced that or know anybody that did, you know that it was rough on buyers. And that's what we would be headed towards. if we get rates that come down and everybody waits to get into that. So I don't think that's a better situation to be in than dealing with a high interest rate. Remember, you date the rate, you marry the house. That's the old adage in real estate, and it couldn't apply more strongly than it does right now, because if you get into that house, whatever price you get in, you can get in, like I said, a good opportunity, a good deal on that home. That rate can be refinanced. What you paid for that home, that always stays the same, right? So you're going to have people that were in that market a couple of years ago and could potentially have other people in a market similar where, you end up 6 figures over asking price. They can't change the price of that house. That is what that is forever. Even though they had that 3% interest rate or whatever it was, can't change that, the sale price of the home. So something to think about. If you're really thinking that waiting is going to solve things, but you actually could afford to deal with the higher interest rate now, you might want to actually look at what that would be versus waiting it out and waiting on a lower interest rate, but potentially still having to battle it out and not having enough inventory. We still could have an inventory shortage to go on top of everything else. So, there definitely would be some level of catching up catching up period with inventory. And that's assuming sellers do get enough motivation to start listing at a much higher rate than they have this year. So this is what I really wanted to cover. It's a really important thing to think about where you are. And it's not like either scenario is really great in a sense, but I really think if you look at the higher rate, it's not, if you can afford it, it is not going to be a killer for you, because rates eventually will come down and you can refinance. And it keeps you, again, lower competition, and motivated sellers are going to be the driving force that helps get you in a home that eventually, once you get that refinancing done, you're going to be much happier with. So something to think about. Reach out if I can answer any questions on this topic at all. I'm always here to help. Thanks for watching. Talk to you soon.